Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our next sessions of Big Data Day 2023. For our next hour, we have a very interesting speaker with an even more interesting session. Today, we're going to be listening around designing analytic systems and event-based architectures, focusing on the most assertive way to deal with the growing volume of data. And as a speaker, I would like to introduce Guilherme Gasque, who is going to be presenting all the way from Brazil today. Guilherme currently works as a senior data architect at Next Reason, a customer identity access management company. And he has a wide experience with machine learning system design, data engineering, business intelligence, and analytics. Additionally, he teaches about data engineering, and he graduated in technology at Unicamp with a specialization in MBA at FGV Brazil. He's currently taking a master's degree in technological innovation at Unifesp with the research line directed to marketing in impact business. Selected for the Executive Education Program on Strategic Thinking in July 2023 at the State University of New York. Guilherme, it's really a pleasure for me to welcome you. I think it's the first time during Big Data Days conference. Thanks so much for being part of our program today, and I'm really looking forward towards your session.
Nice, thank you. Hello everyone, I'm Guilherme. I'm gonna talk a little bit about a challenge that I am facing here in my organization. So the idea is to explore about the problem, how do you deal with the discovery session, and to figure out what will be the best solution. I gonna go also over the solution, explore the what was the chosen, and so on. So let's go for it. Yeah, about me, the speaker already present, so I will not focus on this. So let's go for the challenge. Well, when I joined the company, I have a pretty straightforward mission that is to create and develop, implement, or so on, a data infrastructure, because the current situation is this one that we are looking now. We have a dashboard with the usage metrics regarding the application that we have, but it is not designed in the best way. So we have different sources. We cascade some API calls, and the main problem here is regarding the performance, but also some metrics and things like that. So this presentation will be focused on explore how do you deal with this. Okay, so first we run a discovery. I explore a lot of possibilities. First, understand about the business necessity. So here I worked with the OKRs for the company, also understand all the business rule involved, and so on. Based on that, I start to figure out what could be a solution to handle this our problem. The first thing that came to my mind was to have a provider for retrieve this data. But as the time goes on, I figured out that actually it was a requirement for the business, that we don't just want to track the user's behavior, but we also want to track our APIs, like the usage of them, and also be able to send some customized events. And based on that, the most known solutions, the most known vendors did not fit our necessity. I'm talking about the Google Analytics, segment, and so on. So based on that, and also we have an important thing related to budget. So I explore all the possibilities, all the vendors regarding what will be the best approach regarding this. So based on that, I start to deep dive and looking for some open source solutions. And the final concept that we 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 faced and we understand that it will be our path is regarding a customer data platform. So not only just handle with events, but also have a place when all the data will be processed and so on. So just a matter of contextualization, a customer data platform is a centralized data infrastructure that aims to aggregate and make sense of company's customer data. So what we are developing now is a customer data platform. So we'll handle with events and so on, but also we'll work with data ingestion and all of the pipeline when when we talk about the data. And just to share some key functions and have everyone the same page. So we have the data collection, the ability to ingest first party individual level customer data from multiple sources via package API connections and SDKs and store that data in a usable format. In our case, the data sources are client and server requests. So that's why the main known vendors did not fit our necessity. They most of them work with uh, client requests, so this was a important thing for us to have. Also talking about data governance, so we have a lot of data points, so the ability to granularity enforce which events gets passed on each system, process the data, subject the request, handle access, portability, and so on. And also talking about data quality protection and profile unification, so have the ability to monitor the data accuracy, consistency, the duplication of the data, all the structure, also unify the events and attributes to persistent profiles at the individual level as the data is collected. So just bring some important concepts that we're gonna explore from a technical perspective as well, but it's nice to have this in mind. Okay, and deep dive into this, we are gonna also talk about our event track system. So is the way that we're gonna track all the events, no matter if it is from server side or client side. So and talk about event tracking and just to contextualize, event tracking is following what a user does on the other side. So back into the problem, we have our application, but we are struggling with behavior data. So the way that the things were were being done did not fit. Actually, kind of work, but as I told you, we have problems with performance, also data quality, the accuracy of the data. So because of that, the idea is to have a platform to handle this. So what we gonna follow is what the user, not just the user in our case, but also measure our application. And this provides a valuable insight into every single step of the prospect and if there are any obstacle on their way to finalize the process. So regarding the front-end request, the idea is to deeply understand our our user the usage of our users. And regarding events, an event show on analytics is interaction occurring on a website or a bio app. That is our case. That is triggered by a user action. So every action made by the user will trigger a request and send the the data that we need. For example, we collect the click link, the forms, also if the user close the page and so on. So from the front end perspective, the idea is to get all this information, and from the backend request, the idea is to get uh, some basic information regarding the user. So the user ID, the city where this user is using the application. So based on that, we're gonna also understand uh, our flow, where we have more users, and so on. And this includes a whole bunch of things, from clicking a button, as I said, to sign up for a newsletter, to buying a product. Even page views themselves are events. So just to provide a better context, we are we gonna achieve, we're gonna what is our goal with this event track system. So it is not just understand the user, but also our application. Okay, so here we have a first version of our architecture. So uh, we we develop a business modeling regarding the data perspective, also apply some some data layers. I gonna deep dive into each one. It is small now, but I will talk with you more. I will talk about this in the next slide. So just to provide overview regarding our discovery process. So from the business to the data architecture, we also analyze some reference architecture regarding the AWS. So it is the cloud provider that we use. So I take advantage of all the posts, the blogs, and documentations that AWS provide. And with this, we were able to have a first version of the data architecture. Before we jump to the data architecture itself, it's nice to bring a context that drive me for this path regarding having a lean approach of the data architecture, also a better understanding of the business. So we can see a movement regarding the data stack. So we moved from on-premise approach to the cloud, as all of you already know. And just to elucidate all the difference of each data stack, and provide a better vision of this movement. So with the traditional data stack, we have all the data come from all the structured data. Yeah, this is another important thing to mention. Being ingested into a single source of truth, and this feeding all the analytics stuff, reports, and application. We moved to a modern data stack when we have heterogeneous data, so no matter if it is structured data, unstructured data, or semi-structured data, the idea is to be able to handle all of that and use a concept that we call as lake house. Is a little bit different of data lake, because data lake we have all the flexibility and so on, but we kind of lose the governance part from the from the data warehouse. So the lake house brings these two concepts together. So uh, fitting all the flexibility of data lake with the governance from data warehouse, and with this we have the lake house approach of the data. And after that, we tooling out the ecosystem with the best approach to consuming this data and deliver this to analytics, reports, and application. These two ecosystem parts more to figure out what is the best approach to consume this data. It could be by API, or it could be access directly the data. So because of that, we have a lot of these ramifications. But the idea is to divide the consumption of the data and not and do not overload the consumption, the data, the infrastructure here. And with a data first stack, we also maintain the heterogeneous data, so we can deal with any kind of data. But we have a data interface unifying this data into an unified architecture, and we have a consumption gateway delivering this to the clients. Could be used to analytics, reports, and application. So it just to elucidate how the things are involved and what drives me to the approach that I am present to you. Okay, so I also take advantage about the lake information from AWS. So the construction of our data storage, the rationale was based on the guidelines and best practice of AWS Lake Formation framework. It's pretty closely aligned to the solid principle, and we have in the following layers. So the data governance layer for our case is very important, because we need to ensure that everyone understands the data that is being consumed, as we are dealing with events and so on. So this need to be very clear for everyone, and also provide all the things necessary regarding security and so on, access, this kind of things, policies of the access. And so this is a important topic to have. We have the data source layer, so where the data comes from, the ingestion layer. After we have this data, what will be the process to have it being persistent in our storage, the storage layer, so where the data will be placed, the processing layer. So after we have this data, how to have a process to enable this data to be consumed, and also the consumption layer, that is basically a layer to provide a way of the data being shared with external consumers. Okay, so just to elucidate all the things here, I gonna just give you a quick overview about the reference architectures that I based to present and to have the first version of our architecture. So the first of them is the modern data analytics. So we have all the same layers, the data source here, some data ingestion components to retrieve this data, also the storage layer. In this case, they use the data lake approach. We also have the process layer here to be the bridge for between the data lake and also the consumption layer. So I just take this to evaluate which components could best fit our necessity and so on. I also analyze a manufacturer data lake approach. So the idea was the same: evaluate what will be the components, and a quick thing about me here. When I joined this company, I used to before I joined this company, I used to work with Azure. So for me, this analysis regarding all the reference architecture, it was important because I was able to get all my knowledge regarding the Azure components and understand which components from AWS should be used. So this was really important. This was a really important work to be done, because I came from the Azure cloud provider when I spent most of my last year working with. When I joined this company, they use AWS, so I need to figure out how to understand the components and bring my knowledge from Azure to AWS. So analyzing this reference architecture helped me to create this connection regarding my experience and the what I need to learn from AWS. Just to comment about this part. And here, the modern data platform, and as I showed you, the modern data stack. So this is more to close the understand about what components will be used and what will be the path to being followed. And here is pretty clear the serving layer and the consumption layer. So this is a nice view to understand the modern way to handle with data. Okay. Also, important topic to discuss about is about the architecture. So this was one thing that I really analyzed as well regarding the best data approach. And as we have some streaming source, but we also need to handle with batch process. The architecture the chosen was Lambda, so we process the data over the speed layer, but we also have some process running with some schedules and so on. So because of that, this was the approach. And also here, another important thing, because one important thing to mention that I did not mention, like the idea is to have the data being delivered to the dashboard, but we also want to share this data with our customers, because as we provide customer management solutions, we want the ability to provide not only the views about the users of their users, but also have this data being shared with them. So because of that, the Lambda approach provides us the ability to serving the data. So this was another rationale used to develop our infrastructure. Another analysis that it was made regarding the best place to store this data. So I take advantage about some papers from AWS, and this one pretty nice one that I found, and brings a very nice vision regarding the all the data will be accessed, what the use cases, the performance of each component it serves, the shape of the data, size, and the cost. So this bring me to also this help us to evaluate what will be the best approach. Yeah. In our case, the best approach was Amazon S3. One of the things is regarding the high throughput of the performance, but as the event system work with JSON files, so the use case also fits our necessity, and as the cost is pretty attractive, also helped us to go over this direction. And I will show you as well how we're gonna have this being shared with not only the dashboard but our external customers. And YS3, so it's I think very known by everyone, but the S3 offers the ability to to handle with a large volume of data, provide availability, performance, also handle with security, and provide a virtually limited scalability with a low cost. So this was pretty attractive to us. So it also enable us to work with regions and availability zones. So our infrastructure also handle with this. So if you have a region that breaks down or something like that, we can just shift from another. So we are prepared to this. Well, regarding the region right consistency, it's important to us because as we're gonna have a lot of events being written, we also gonna need to read this data. So this capability of Amazon S3 was also an important thing to be considering in our decision. And also the high performance regarding compute workloads. And so we can also go to uh, a distributed computing approach. So this is another thing that also help us with this. And not only and as important as the where the data will be stored is the format of the data. So for this solution, the format chosen was Parquet, and I will elucidate some of the qualities and the aspects that help us and drive us to choosing this format. First, it's language agnostic, so no matter the language you use to read this data, it will work. It is a free and open source file format. It is low storage consumption. So as I mentioned, the S3 can store as many data as you need. But if we also combine this with a low storage format, we can like have better results with this. So as you can see, the volume of the data, even it is increased a lot, you can handle that, because first you're gonna have a format that consumes low storage from where it is placed, and also we have S3 that can store as many data as you need, files and so on. Regarding security, the data is not human readable. It is highly efficient data compression, decompression. This is important as well regarding the reading of the data, so we can have better performance. It supports complex data types and advanced net data structures. There is another important thing to mention as well, as we are dealing with event track system. Uh, the form to use it is JSON, and it depends how the trackers were implemented. We could have nested uh, data structures. So to handle this, Parquet and Parquet was chosen and can work pretty well with this kind of nested data. In terms of input and output of the disk, we have it is efficient, and we also can specify columns that need to be carried. And this is another important thing, because when we have a format that you can specify which column I'm gonna query, we can gain speed in terms of performance, because I don't need to read the entire data set or so on. So I can choose a specific columns. Uh, we have some efficiency in reading data in less time, as it is a columnar storage and minimize less latency. It is self-describing storage format. When we have image data, we have metadata information and schema when storing data in a file. So this is important things, as well as we are talking about data governance and so on. Have the schema of the data, it's important, right? Not only the data type and so on, but the source, the size, and things that when we talk about data governance is pretty important in terms of management of the whole assets. And another nice thing as well is 2 times faster to unload and consume, and up to 6 times less storage in Amazon S3 compared to test formats. So a nice formation that helped us to validate our our choice. And it is also used for analytics roll-up cases, typically in conjunction with traditional OLTP database. So as you can see, it's a format that can handle a lot of different use cases, and also can be combined with the volume of data. And just to finish, column-based format. Files are organized by column rather than by row, which saves storage space and speed up analytics queries. So one more time, we 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 are optimizing the storage of the data. So, and as we see, no matter how the data is growing, we will be able to handle this size of data. Good for storing big data of any kind, structured data, tables, images, videos, documents. Another important thing to mention as well. So we can handle, we can deal with any kind of data. So in the future, if we need to store some image, for example, from a specific page and so on, we have the ability to have this. Saves on cloud saves on cloud storage space by using highly efficient column-wise compression, flexible encoding schemes for columns with different data types. And the last thing, increase data throughput and performance using techniques like data skipping, whereby queries that fetch specific columns values need not to read the entire row of data. And as I mentioned, this ability to query the data, it's very, very useful. Well, regarding data governance, so the idea is to provide a overview regarding the data for business assets, security assets, data assets, and also technology. The idea is to provide a business lineage, so ability to tell the story of the data, also have data classification. So if this data it's from a user, it's from some endpoint. Also have data policy management and the benefits for the technical stakeholders. It's the technical lineage of the data. Have a business glossary. So with this, we break the silo among between business and technical. So the business glossary will help the devs and so on to have a better understanding of the data that is being used and handled. Also data dictionary. So as we have events and data come from different sources, have a data dictionary, it's important. And also have a granular security control for the consumption of the data. And here is our data architecture. So here we have our event track system. The solution that I think I will change the order. Actually, before I talk about the architecture, I will talk about the solution that we choose to use regarding event system, event track system. It is an open source solution called Snowplow. It has the ability to. It's an open source solution, but also offers a business package where you don't need to handle the infrastructure and so on. But in our case, the open source solution fits pretty well. Once we have all the Terraform modules and things to deploy this in our infrastructure. So the way that Snowplow works is the following. We have some trackers being implemented in our service. So JavaScript tracker, we have, in this case, it was a tracker, but in our situation, we used JavaScript, PHP, and Python. So this is one thing that also was a challenge that we faced when we were choosing the vendors. Like some of the vendors just handle with JavaScript and things like that, but in our case, we need to handle with front end events. In this case, we use the JavaScript tracker, but we also want to measure things from our backend service. So in our case, we need to have trackers for PHP and Python. So For this, Snowplow work pretty well. And once you have the trackers implemented in the service, we have a collector to ingest this data, and the kinesis string will load this data into S3, and with this we have our data consumed in being placed into S3. So just to help you to understand why you have kinesis here. So kinesis done all the ingestion into our storage layer. So here we used S3 bucket from the raw to the silver and gold layer. The idea is to use Jenkins, run some Python script just to do some transformations and so on. And here's another important thing to mention. Like, as you can see, this raw layer, we can have structured data, semi-structured data, or even unstructured data. So the idea of the jobs here is to have a default format that I present to you, which is Parquet. And with this, we are able to deliver this data over the database, or create an API to consume this data. Just an overview about that. And here is it's a business perspective about what we implement. So here is our application. We have Snowplow ingest, handle, and send all these events to our raw layer. And the data format here is as is. So by now, we just handle with structured data and semi-structured data. We have the next layer that is processed, where you have some Python scripts being managed by Jenkins, and over this we create a single source of truth. The format is Parquet, and here you can see what I talk about. The idea is to have this data being used by our dashboard, but with this layer we also have the ability to, as we used to say here in the company, to democratize this data. So yeah, here's a quick it was a quick talk about how the solution was, how the challenge was understood, what was the discovery, what was the rationale used to have a first version of the architecture, and now we have a solution where we can ingest a lot of data, handle with this growing of data, and also have the ability to share this data internally to our dashboard, but also have this being shared with our customers. Well, from my side, that is it. I hope you have some questions, and let's talk a little bit.
Thank you, Guilherme. This was a very interesting session. A lot of in-depth overviews of the different models and technologies that you're using. So I think that is definitely something that a lot of people can learn from a lot. A couple of key questions that came in. Let me start with the first one. And that is, let me project it on the screen. This is a question from Francois Vermeulen. Based on this and using lake formation as example, what is your opinion is the maturity curve in modern big data architectures? For my understanding, it's lake house, flywheel, mesh. Do you agree?
Well, I would say that it depends, because, for example, from a data mesh perspective, you have a lot of domains that you need to create a way to have everything communicate. So this could be applied to big organizations. But for example, in our case, we are a small company, a startup, and we don't have a lot of domains to handle. So in our case, the data mesh approach is it not best fit what we need to achieve. So in our case, the data lake approach fits pretty well. I would say that it depends of the organization, also the maturity of the organization regarding data. So if the organization does not work with, let's say, small analysis or even generating reports, it it could they could have a data mesh approach for the data, but they will not take the whole advantage of having a data mesh if the usage of the data is it's not so complex. So from my side, I would say it depends of the use case and so on.
Okay, very good. So not a one size fits all approach.
Yeah.
Good. Then let me go towards the second question. Second question is, can you explain the main difference between a modern data stack and a data first stack?
Well, I would say it's the layers regarding consumption, and let's back to the example here. I think I would say that is the main difference. Like here we have a data interface, so we're gonna have process to create this bridge and also have a consumption gateway to create this bridge. Here uh, we can choose the best way to consume this data, but it will not be the same for analytics, reports, or application. And the data first stack, the idea is to have a gateway where you can consume the data no matter the use case or the client. I would say that is the governance of how all
Yeah.
the data
Yeah,
you
I actually
consume
think
it.
that this is
Yeah,
really one of the crucial slides that you showed, that really explains the differences between the different formats in terms of data stacks. And I think that this is a yeah, absolutely a phenomenal overview.
yeah, that is it.
Good. I think, yeah, we have time for one last question. Let me put it on the screen. There's one more. The question is, we have some debates in the office. What is the difference between a data platform and an analytics platform? Well, that one should be easy for you.
Well, yeah, it's a nice question because and also fit the one of the main challenges here in the organization, because when I joined here, they also talked about analytics. But when the time goes by and I have a deep understand about what will be the next steps in terms of data, I figured out that we just don't need an analytics platform. We need a data platform. So analytics will handle with the data to be used for business and so on. But when we have a bigger picture about have this data being shared, have some policies, so the scope of how the data will be used it's wider. So the main difference is, for me, is that like analytics stack will be more used for business and I would say internally. But when you need to have this being shared outside the organization, and you need to handle with security policies and access, it demands a bigger approach. So in this case, you start to go to a data platform instead of an analytics platform.
Good. With that, Guilherme, we're at the end of the time, unfortunately. If you have a quick look into the chat, I don't know if you were able to see it, but there were quite a number of people who really loved your presentations, and that say that they're going to connect with you and that they really thought it was actually brilliant. So I can only second that. It was a really in-depth and for techie like me, a very insightful. Actually, kind of learned and picked up some new things. So thank you so much for your overview. It's really, I would say very insightful.
Nice.
For all the participants that are interested in Guilherme's slides, you can download them on the right-hand side of the screen. So by all means, if you would like to do that and connect with him on LinkedIn, you see all his information right over there. Thanks, Guilherme. Unfortunately, my next speaker is waiting already, so we need to move this session towards an end. But before I do that, let me very quickly show what the audience can expect next. We're already moving towards our last or our last sessions actually already, because after this, there's only the awards ceremony. So in track one, which is going to be my track, I'm going to be hosting Susanna, who's a data strategist and scientist, and is going to talk about organizational culture transformation, challenges and benefits of adopting a data culture. In the second track, we're going to listen to Henry Clavo, who's going to talk about a hybrid cloud for big data. So two completely different topics in the next hour, and I will see you back in a few minutes for what is already going to be our last slot of speakers of Big Data Days 2023. See you in a second.